Yes, welcome to After the Hype. I'm your host, as always, Brian Joseph. With me, as always, is Jonathan Hardesty.
I'm here.
CHEWIE Darso.
Hello.
Emily Blake.
Hey.
And special guest today, we have Jandy Hardesty.
Hello.
Hi, Jandy.
Hey.
I know that person.
We would assume so. We also have in the background, just a quick disclaimer, we have their child here, Karina. She's going to be quiet, looks like it. She's playing with the big bear in the background. Yeah, so we'll do a quick where have you been doing. I'll go first. I saw Valerian, A City of a Thousand Planets. And I really liked it. And apparently a lot of people don't. Like, really don't. And they think it's terrible. And I was like, I kind of enjoyed it.
It must be such a burden to be so wrong.
Yeah, those people are wrong.
I mean, there are some definite problems with it, but they also kind of come from the original comic and the way, like, my biggest complaint with it, and not just to completely go down the rabbit hole, is I don't like the female character in it all because she has nothing to do. But they lifted that straight from the comic, so it's kind of like a weak excuse.
It's really unusual because Luc Besson usually does a really good job with
exactly.
women.
And that's why I was very surprised going into this that she got so little. Like there's big action sequences, and like right as soon as they start, she's like, "All right, I'm gonna go over here," and then she kind of sits in the corner while he does all the action sequences, and it's kind of annoying, but. The movie itself is still...
Especially because in the advertising, they make her look really involved.
She's really involved to the plot, but she doesn't really have any involvement in like the actual like shoot 'em up sequences. She is one sort of like fight tussle, and it's all of like 15 seconds. And she does well with it. Like it's not like she couldn't handle the stunts or like the physicality of the role. It just feels like they just didn't do anything with her.
So it's what Hollywood would consider empowered.
Yes. Yeah, I thought it was great. I don't want to spoil one of the characters, but there is one actor that I did not know was in the movie, and when he showed up, I'm like, holy crap, this is fun. But that's it for me. I'm done.
I went to Comic-Con, so that's all. And
Comic Con?
How do you spell that?
that was my whole life last week, and then now I've been working ever since. So the only thing I can talk about is Comic-Con. But I did see a couple of previews. I saw a little presentation by the Inhumans, which I've heard behind the scenes is a bit of a shit show, but the presentation was okay. I liked what I saw of the show. I'm interested. It's Ramsay Bolton being Ramsay Bolton, but his name is not Ramsay Bolton. And
I mean, to be fair, his character in the comic books isn't that far off.
Yeah. And Anson Mount plays Black Bolt, which is interesting because I'm interested to see like. He likes choosing roles like that are a bit of an extra challenge because he can't speak, you know, but one thing that bugged me is when I was watching this whole dinner scene that they had in part of the teaser, his whole family is around him and he's signing and his wife is doing all the translating for him. And I was like, motherfucker, y'all live with this. You grew up with this man. You've known him your entire lives and none of you speaks his signing. Okay. You're a bunch of assholes. But anyway, and I also saw I was lucky to be in Hall H for the Defenders panel, which was pretty great because they came out and John Barenthal came out and we saw a teaser of the Punisher, which looks baller. And then they had then they showed us like a trailer for the Defenders and they talked to everybody and that was pretty fun. And then Sigourney Weaver was there, which was freaking cool. And then in the middle of Jeff Loeb, is that who it was? Presentation, Charlie Cox just goes, all right, Jeff, let's show the people something. And he was like, no, they came here to see you. And Sigourney Weaver stood up, put her hands on her hips and goes, Jeff, give the people the thing. And then he goes, okay, we have a teaser for the Defenders. We have a clip for the Defenders. It's the exact same length as the first episode of The Defenders, and the whole place went wild. And then we got to watch the first episode, which was pretty good. I was very interested in seeing how they were going to take these four disparate shows and make them feel like they had a cohesive narrative and like but they had these beautiful transitions. Like from an editor's perspective, you guys will appreciate that.
Nice.
They had one where like Luke Cage was going downstairs. And as he was in like a tenement apartment building, and as he was going downstairs, he flipped his hoodie up. They cut immediately to Jessica Jones going upstairs in a different apartment building, flipping her hoodie down. It was like, ooh, yee. And by the end of the episode, though, they weren't together, but there was a common incident that happened in the city, and you saw all their reactions to it. So you saw like, okay, this does have a way for them to come together. Like I was worried about. I was like, how are they going to do this? Because they can't get them together in the first episode, can they? But instead, they just showed them all sort of reacting to the same thing, and that was like, okay, that's where we're headed.
Oh,
and
cool.
I was always
really
wondering
liked it.
why they weren't reacting reacting to things in each other's shows.
So I just assume that whenever they cut to Danny Rand, he's just like chewing on wood, just somewhere, just sitting in a corner.
I think.
Hey guys.
I'm a bad Iron Fist.
I'm Iron Fist.
He spends most of it like on a plane talking about the hand.
I've got a good hand.
I think it's going to help that there are other characters to carry the load and not.
Yeah.
So
There's
Kinda
promise
like
of
in Game
them.
of Thrones
Yeah.
when we thought he was really great.
Oh, he shouldn't be that bad with. Oh God, he's terrible.
There is promise in just the teaser that everyone has seen
Yeah.
of them throwing shade at Danny Rand the whole time, and I'm expecting that going in. Like, look at this silly guy with a yellow fist. Whatever.
I mean, I'm okay with it, but at the same time, that's just hanging a lampshade on their horrible casting decision. It's like, well, it's horrible. I guess we should just make fun of it now. Because there's nothing we can do about it.
Jessica Jones
I mean,
totally would,
You
though.
can recast. You
Yeah,
all
they're not
can.
going to.
If 90s sitcoms taught us anything, people will just
Yeah,
forget.
but the show, according to Netflix, we have no way of being sure, was really successful for them. So what's their motivation to recast?
Yeah, they have no motivation whatsoever. They have bad reviews, but who cares? If people still go, whatever.
I mean,
We're getting
it's the
Suicide
one that
Squad
I didn't
2.
even try to watch.
All right, next.
Well, I was with Brian in San Francisco for the marathon, so I did not watch much new stuff. But we did watch some CNN when they were doing Throwback to the 90s, and all the nostalgia-ness we've been talking about. I was just like, I still like this. It's the same thing as like when VH1 used to do Behind the Music or whatnot, and just talking heads talking about the 90s. And it's like, I still like it. I don't know why. I'll still watch this. It's definitely nostalgia. There's no reason. I know all this stuff, but I still want to watch it.
I enjoyed the episode we watched on the Bill Clinton blowjob. It was just fun getting like everyone's reaction to it again. Like I'd kind of forgotten. Like
I don't remember that. Maybe I was in the shower or something?
Yeah, it
Because I
could've
saw the when they went through everyone's reaction to him playing the saxophone on Arsenio Hall and how people called that unpresidential. And now I'm like, wow, we really did get lax.
and Trump was somewhere going, "Hold my beer."
Oh man, saxophones and tan suits. What are you gonna do? Those Democrats know how to party.
So unpresidential. He has talents.
Next.
I'll go. So we just recently got a Nintendo Switch, and with that, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the remaster. And what's really cool about this is that it has a drive assist mode where it keeps you from falling off the track and accelerates for you. And at first it's like, why would you put that in there? But we have a 4-year-old, and she can now play the game. And so it's actually really cool kind of playing a Nintendo with your kid. I really like it.
Despite their complete incompetence.
Oh, I stop on the track often and wait for her to stop looping around and for the computer to kind of take over and get her ahead. So that part's not as fun, but like
I like that you're throwing shade at your daughter's Mario Kart skill.
She's not
4,
genetically
man.
predisposed, whatever, to play this game.
But
She
it's-
has to learn.
yeah. Well, that's the thing is like you take for granted how difficult like 3D space is for someone who's never done that, whose
Right.
only experience is maybe Mario Maker, left, right, up,
Which
down.
she's actually really good at.
yeah.
Not like playing the Mario, but like making levels. She
that's
can
cool.
make pretty interesting levels.
Oh yeah, and she figured out all the mechanics and learned how to make like little trolleys and things like that. So she knows how to do that. But like moving to the 3D space where everything's a little bit different is a really tough skill, and one that I completely took for granted because I grew up with Nintendo and Atari and just kind of followed that whole history.
And you made the logical jump with everyone else with like Nintendo 64, where it's like, oh, I'll just spend the first 10 hours running around the courturt of the castle in Super Mario 64.
Yeehaw! And then like circles and circles and circles and circles.
Look,
and
he breathes when you stop moving.
technology. But yeah, no, I mean, it's cool. And it's that level of accessibility. I just wish we're in more games like that. Because if you get too frustrated to even try, that's a real barrier.
Yeah.
And Mario Kart is really fun. Like they've really perfected that thing down to just every moment of it is fun and silly. And their video replays are hilarious because the characters kind of interact with each other as you drive past them. So if one throws a shell at the other one and knocks them out, they just kind of stare at the car as they drive by with like this smug look. And then like Luigi, there's a meme about Luigi's death stare as he drives by. He just kind of
I've
turns
seen
and
that,
face. Yep, that's from Mario Kart 8, and it is beautiful to play those replays because you can slow them down, speed them up, rewind them, and relive the dumbest moments
And
ever.
screen cap them.
And screen cap them.
And share them directly to Facebook and Twitter.
I'm gonna pause. I think you just unhinged it.
Oh no, I broke it.
Yeah, you got it. Like the
What?
plastic
How
thing.
does it?
It's
I just
it's
tighten it.
really crappy, but
Okay. I was just trying to avoid having to lean forward in this chair.
there you go.
There we go.
But yeah, that's it.
Cool. Jandy, last but not least.
All right. Well, when you have kids, everything that you do has to do with kids. So mine is also related.
I would assume.
Regal Theaters does like this summer movie express program during the summer where they show kids movies for $1 every Tuesday and Wednesday mornings. So she and I have been doing that, and usually it's stuff like Happy Feet 2 that you just kind of sit through and are like, all right, well, I hope at least she's happy for an hour and a half or whatever. But this week they showed Kubo and the Two Strings, and I took her to see that.
How'd she like that?
It's interesting because I was afraid it would be too scary for her. And
Yeah, those sisters could be pretty creepy.
Yeah, there were a couple scenes where she was like, I want to go out. So we went out and like stood in the hallway for a second.
Okay, yeah.
And then we went back in. But for the parts where she was there, like she was way more engaged than she usually is with movies. Like she was following it all. She was keeping track of the plot. Like she was really concerned that they wanted his other eye. That was very, very troubling. She didn't care about, that anybody might die or anything. She was like, but they're going to take his eye. But, yeah, she stuck with it except for a couple of the fight scenes. And
Has she seen the other Leica movies?
I don't think she's seen any of the others.
We maybe briefly started Paranorman. I feel like we've maybe.
I didn't start as Paranorman. You might have done that when I wasn't there.
Okay, but
I was
but
gonna
she
say-
got too bored because she was too young.
I was gonna say I think the only super child friendly one, like under like 6, would be like Box Trolls, because there's really nothing like terrible.
Coraline would be terrifying.
Coraline would be horrifying.
Oh no, she was really scared. She really didn't like the part where the mom like sent him away and she stayed.
Oh.
And the mom stayed to fight because that like parent abandonment
Yeah,
thing
makes
is like
sense, for
really
sure.
scary at her age. So
And she understood it. That was when you told me that was amazing to
yeah,
hear.
she understood what was going on. So yeah, I'm probably like a terrible parent for taking my 4-year-old to see this
No.
really scary
I think that makes
movie,
you a
but
way better parent.
Dude, like I was saying that to my in-law aunt, law, whatever. I don't know what to call
I
Sandy.
don't know what relationship that is. Aunt and
Be like, I'm pro scaring kids at a young age. Like I really am, because it teaches them more things about life. I feel like that things are actually at stake. And yeah, she's expressing emotions, which is a natural thing, and it's not makes you a bad
there's
parent.
a Tolkien quote I love that about fairy tales that it's you don't show kids fairy tales to show them that they're dragons, because kids already know there are dragons. You read them fairy tales so that they know dragons can be killed.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel bad about killing all the dragons, but you know,
They're huge
Well-
jerks. It's okay.
This was Tolkien, like his dragons are all terrible, so
that's true. They're not all like Pete's dragons.
they're not like nice dragons.
Yeah.
But there was even one time when she watched Land Before Time, the very first one, the really tearjerker one, and she just sat up when I think the leaf that guides them got stomped by Sabretooth or Sharptooth, and she just started crying. It was like, how are they going to get to the valley or the Great Valley? And I was like, oh man, I forgot about that. And then I was like, it's okay, don't cry, be strong.
I don't know. I think, teaching, showing, and exposing your children to things that have consequences and showing that something bad will happen, but then you can still work through it is a valuable thing.
Sure.
I agree.
And have her start reading Goosebumps. We can lend you some.
All right, I think it's time to start talking about today's movie. So today is the first of a ongoing series. This will take probably longer than the podcast has life in it, but we will do what we can. Where I'm starting at the very beginning of the Academy Awards and going all the way through current day of the Academy Award winner of that year. So we're in 78, 80 something Academy Awards. So that's
A while.
That's
Oh, that's
a
a lot.
lot of movies, but we'll do what we can.
So it's gonna be like 5 more years of podcasts.
Yeah, I mean that's the only way we can get this done, and that's if we're doing it like every week. If we did this every week, we still have like 2 years of these.
But I'm
That's
a
We're not
little
doing that.
It's
confused
a good way to
because
ensure longevity.
Yeah, that's true.
this movie came out in 27.
Yes.
And it's 17 now. So that's 80 years, or 90 years.
Oh, then I guess maybe it's 90. I just can't.
Were there years where there were no Academy Awards?
I don't know.
No.
No, it says Jandy. There's a reason we called Jandy.
Right.
When I said I was doing a classic film, there's one person that comes to mind whenever I think of classic films, and that's John's
Jandy.
wife, Jandy.
Excellent.
She knows far more on the subject than I do, which is part of the reason why we called her here, so that we don't just sound like a bunch of buffoons all day.
You can sound like buffoons, and then I'll just correct you.
That's okay.
But then I
yeah.
guess you can just edit out the.
Yeah, it'll just be you being right the whole time. So yeah, a little bit of history. This movie came out a long time ago, and that's the end of the history.
The end.
No, I mean it's if you've never seen it, it's a silent film, and it's gorgeous. But for the plot, I think we need to do a breakdown. I think that's the way that works. Jandy, you've never had to do one of these, have you?
I don't think so. 'Cause
You've only been on what, twice?
I was on for Cloud Atlas, and I think is that the only other
Mass
only one?
Effect.
Mass Effect.
Right, the Mass Effect trilogy.
Which imagine a 30-second breakdown for 3 video games spanning 100 hours each.
Right.
I mean, Shepard saves the day.
Yeah. There's bad robots. Shepard beats them. The end.
You win. You did it.
Shepard saves the day and there's space racism.
Yeah. Anyhow, Wings. So Wings from 1927.
It's related to Criterion
It-
Collection.
sure, it's on the Criterion, isn't it?
Is it?
Wouldn't it be?
Wings.
It
Yeah.
should be.
It should be.
I
But
would
it's-
assume that
it's
it is.
not. It's on Kino.
Okay. Okay, so
Except it's
everybody-
actually out of print, which I found out when I tried to buy it for this.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I was very annoyed. You can still rent it online, obviously. But
Yeah, that's how I
digitally,
watch it
But
on
I
Amazon.
was like, I'll just buy the Blu-ray. I would like to have this movie. It's out of print. So, note to
like
Kino,
oversight.
put it back in print.
Wait, this came out in 1927. Wouldn't this be an anniversary this year? Shouldn't it be re-released this year?
Maybe that's why they took it out of print.
I mean,
That
you
could-
would
yeah.
assume there'd be like a
That would make
90
sense.
year or 80 year. I can do math.
That would make sense.
Anniversary?
Maybe that's why it's out of print. It's coming
Yeah.
back out this year.
All right, are we ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, so Wings from 1927 in 30 seconds. Here we go, go!
All right, it's 1917. War's breaking out. 2 guys from the same town in America head off to World War I. They're excited about flying planes. They don't know what war is yet. But they're both in love with the same girl, but she loves one of them and not the other one. She loves David. But the girl next door, Mary, loves Jack, but Jack doesn't know it. Despite initial conflict, Jack and David become close friends. And eventually David is shot down behind enemy lines when he steals a German plane to try to get home. Jack shoots him down again. Oops.
Yeah, I'd say that does it. Oops.
Oops.
That was one of the best watching the movie with Chewie. I'm like, I bet he's going to shoot him down. And then it happened. I'm like, oh, God, I was kidding.
I didn't mean it. Stop it, movie.
Woo.
And then I just started talking about pre-code stuff.
Yeah, I just didn't expect this movie to go that dark. I don't know why. I just was like, yeah, I mean, it just kind of like the way the movie starts with them like, I'm just working on the car. I was like, I don't think this will have an incredibly dark and sad ending. Nope. It goes there.
He got the girl at the end, though. So, the right girl.
I think the girl got him at the end.
You could put it that way, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other gal just
The other
whatever.
girl's just
Yeah,
done.
she
She'll be
just.
fine.
She's just alone.
Which is really, it's like, well, Jack, you could have her now. I mean, David, but.
I mean, you killed David.
So.
But it makes sense for it to be that dark. I mean, they're coming off of a war, and it's the Depression.
Oh, it totally
You know,
makes sense.
so-
Yeah.
Actually, the Depression hadn't happened yet when this movie came out.
Yeah, this is
This is pre-
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
that was right before the Depression. But
Yeah.
still, I mean, they had just come out of World War One. Like,
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense that this movie would be that dark. But it's still just like when I think of like silent films and like the old timey like super fast motion, that sort of stuff. I don't think of very serious heart punching films unless I'm thinking like Bicycle Thief or something like that. But
Well, I don't know, M.
yeah, that's true.
You know?
I think it's just because it was so
Wait,
corny.
was M silent? M silent?
I
Oh, my
nev-
bad. M's
I
not
haven't
silent.
seen M.
Okay.
But like when it's so corny in parts of this, I didn't expect that turn. Like especially
Yeah.
like the drinking sequence, the bubbles, if you
Oh
will.
God,
Yeah.
the bubbles.
Bubbles. Oh,
Can we
bubbles.
talk about that?
Yeah.
Was he drinking absinthe?
Right? Probably.
Right? Like,
Never
what
been drunk
alcohol
enough to
can
hallucinate.
It's Paris in the teens, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it was I mean, he was on something. He was not just on booze, or
Yeah.
he was.
I love too that he's so wasted he can't even see her face.
Yeah.
And was that other girl a hooker? Like, because she seemed like she was trying real hard to work him. To
I
get
think
him to
she
the
was a
bedroom.
shooting star groupie.
Shooting star groupie.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So that was one thing we breezed over. I'll say it a lot throughout this thing. His nickname is the Shooting Star.
Yeah.
Because when he made his car, Mary, the girl next door, painted a shooting star on it. And it's like, hey, you know what you get when you see a shooting star? You get to kiss the girl you love. He's like, I can, and then runs away.
That was just like, oh,
To the other
poor girl.
It's like, oh.
When she said that, I'm like, the dude's gonna run away, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh man.
no, that's not going to go out well for you.
So basically, the plot of the story is, it's really, if you look at it from Mary's perspective, she just had to wait for a man to be broken down into nothing
Yeah.
and lose his best friend, and then she could finally
Then
get him.
she's
Once
not
he was a
desirable.
husk of a man.
Yeah, he murdered his best friend. He's going to have some pretty severe PTSD.
Oh, God, yes.
She's
and
like,
survivor's
finally,
guilt.
I can have him.
Like, I imagine that, and we know his affinity for drinking. Like, that
That
marriage
did not
is
end
not gonna
well.
go well.
There was not any, like, back then they didn't even think psychologists were good.
Yeah.
They thought they were quacks. They're trying to be weird. So, yeah. He was
I imagine
definitely...
5 years into that marriage, there's a lot of shut up and give me my bubbles.
She's in for a really horrible nightmare.
Yeah. It's a very happy movie we're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's pretty.
We
dark.
just know
It's
a
pretty
little too
dark.
much about history when it comes
Yeah.
to that.
I think what's great about that scene is just the special effects on display. There's a lot of special effects in this movie that are done amazing. But like,
yeah, like the double exposures, like the overlay, like in like the processing, like all like this movie is incredible. Like for a film school like nerd, incredible.
It boggles my mind how they're able to do so many aerial shots with how much cameras weighed back
Yeah.
then.
Now, Jandy, do you know what to think about how this was filmed at all?
The aerial stuff is all filmed in the air. Like, I think some of it, I was just trying to watch it. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But some of the planes being shot down look like models to me, but most of the stuff in the air is shot in the air. And was one of the towering kind of technical achievements of the silent era for that reason. And a lot of the stock footage of it was reused in films for years because, like, why go do that again?
Yeah.
when you already have
It would
this?
cost so much.
Now, do you know? This was the one thing I was trying to figure out. Like, there's obvious parts where there's like they're in front of a screen, and then there's parts when they're not. Do you know if like? Do you assume like all like the inserts were probably like in front of a screen, like when they're like turning around, like yeah, I'm getting away?
Yeah, probably.
Because I remember like when I was in college, my teacher insisted that like no, they were just taking off. They just put a camera in the back and had him take off and had him turn around, so the actor was flying the plane. I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, I
think
don't
that-
know for sure. I don't know
Yeah.
for sure on that stuff.
it does look like the back projection on like a built thing, but man, it's so close that it's hard to tell, and that's what surprised me the most.
Like there are like I think a handful of shots where like you can definitely tell there's a screen behind him, but more often than not, like you honestly can't tell, and like that is
No.
impressive as hell.
And it mixes those so well. There's a scene where the Germans are bombing the one village,
Oh, and they just drop actual bombs.
and yeah.
And just
I've
destroys
actually
an
found
actual
that rather
village.
terrifying. Like some of the shots, I'm like, oh god, this was pre like OSHA. There's like no, I don't know if there were stuntmen, but what did they know back then? There's no wires. There's just bombs going off into these actors.
Women, safety.
And those buildings blowing up are not models.
Yeah, it's like
You
terrifying.
can tell, like,
I
the
love
explosions
that
are
the
there.
shot like down like the chute of them dropping bombs. I'm like, oh, I wonder how this works. Oh, they're just dropping bombs.
I love that everyone today is like, ooh, this movie uses practical effects. Screw you and your practical effects. Like,
dropping real bombs.
yeah.
What are you talking about? We're just blowing things up.
But you wouldn't expect it, because a scene like that is like, well, they're going to cut away, and it's clearly going to be a styrofoam tube being like thrown against the wall or something.
Yeah.
And nope, that's
No.
just devastation straight up.
And the interesting is in 19, I'm sure when this thing was shot, it was probably like 25, 26 because it post took a lot longer then. But it was the interesting thing about it is it cost $2 million. So $2 million in 26 equals out. I did the math about 25 to 26 million nowadays. Wow. So even with that inflation like adjusted for, and down goes the child.
Oopsie.
Oopsie.
Are you okay?
You guys, the bear is dangerous.
I mean, he's big and
I mean,
floppy.
I've seen The Revenant. That bear will take her out.
Oh. We don't have any baby bears in here, so.
Now you put an idea in her head.
Oh, I hope that came through. Anyhow, so it costs about made today, it could not be like you can't make it. A movie like this with that many like say practical effects, if you will, but like for 25 million,
Just drop
no
real
chance.
bombs.
I was thinking the whole time I was watching that first big aerial battle, like, first of all, I mean, we haven't brought up yet how that was obviously the influence for Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see it in some of the
yeah.
shots. You were like,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's exactly a shot from Star Wars. But I was just thinking about how that movie was Star Wars for some people. I mean,
Yeah.
to be sitting in an audience and seeing that in 1927 on your screen, you would have been just like mind blown.
Yeah.
The same way
Totally.
people think about like the opening shot of Star Wars, or the way I felt about the opening sequence of The Matrix. Like
Yeah.
this would be that movie for a lot of people.
It's incredible. Like even watching it now, it's incredible. Like how well they did it. Like it's nuts. But yeah, you're right. Like it's funny watching this thing because I'm not sure if this one's commonly listed as like an influence on Star Wars, but it definitely,
Definitely, yeah.
For sure.
Like this thing really kind of dictates how we shoot aerial battle sequences.
Oh, well, that shot where, I mean, there was a lot of shots of dudes getting killed, like a lot. But there was one, like, really early on in that first battle where he gets hit and then slumps over. And, I mean, that's almost exactly
Oh,
the
yeah.
shot from Star Wars.
Oh yeah, totally.
And the way he moves around in his unconscious state
Yeah.
is very much like they're probably up in the air. There's
Oh.
some sort of gravity thing going. Like you can't fake that.
You can see the wind on their face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in their mouth, on their cheek and such.
But like the slumping of the head, when you watch these videos of people on roller coasters passing out, it's the same
Yeah.
exact movements where like they can't control that. That's not a thing you can act. And
Do you
it's
think someone actually passed out during filming?
well, or they're just
Kinda hope so.
They're
They actually shot him.
yeah, they shot him.
they
They're
definitely hurt
Here's our
their
practical
neck.
effects. Blam. Now we're going for a ride.
casting call for the main characters are
Workman's
huge.
comp's not a thing yet.
We're flying to the hospital.
Wait, is
Hopefully
workman-
you make it.
They had unions. Was workman's comp a thing in 27? I'm not sure.
We're not a history podcast. We're a movie
Let's
podcast.
just assume everything in
I like
1927 was super shitty.
Yeah.
Except for the booze.
Except for
the
the
booze looks great.
Booze is great. It made you hallucinate bubbles.
Yeah.
What
I
could
wish
be
booze
better?
did that.
I think one thing that I really liked about this, and it kind of ties into how we consider pacing and time now, is that this movie takes its time for everything, but because of it, the tone shifts work really well. As like you have a break from the really darkness of the battles, and then you go to like Paris for their partying, and get right back into like what's effectively the worst part of the movie for everybody, for the characters involved, the final put. And it's just it's great how that length of time allows it to change it up a little bit and be very kind of like casual about it.
The thing that I find interesting, like talking about the pacing, is like when I watch silent films, and I haven't seen as many as I probably should have, but I've seen a fair amount. I have more often than not, I have trouble sticking with it, just because I'm so used to like modern cinema that like I just like my brain just kind of automatically just starts tuning out after a while. I was invested in this thing the whole way through. Mm-hmm. And like it's a different quality of silent film because like I've seen so many that it's just like, yeah, these are good movies, but like I've seen the story replicated so many times that I just don't really care anymore because I know exactly where it's going because it's been remade and remade and remade to where it's now just like standard storytelling. Whereas I go to this one and like the way that the story's told, like it's kind of cheesy, it's definitely dated, but like it still had me invested. Where like I knew the characters immediately, I knew who each one of them was, like I knew like the relationships, and everything just came across crystal clear. Like it's just really great filmmaking. And like you look at that, like, and yeah, I can see why this thing won Best Picture. I don't really know what it was up against, and I definitely haven't seen those. But
Not very many.
yeah,
Just looking back at the history, I'm like, yeah, they're like 5 movies a year.
well, yeah, I mean they weren't being made nearly as often, but I enjoyed the story. Like I thought it was a fun ride. I enjoyed like the character changes. Like now I'm forgetting which one's which. Who's
David's rich, Jack's not.
which one's the jerk?
Jack.
The
Jack's a
scene-
jerk.
When they're
I mean,
in the,
he is the one who shot his friend.
that's true.
And stomped his hat.
that is
and
the scene
tried
I'm
to
talking
steal
about.
his woman.
The
And yet
stomping
he's
the
the
hat
winner.
scene I think is hysterical. Like that was I laughed so hard at the like they're doing the push-ups and just stomp and then hey man, lay off my hat. It's just like they're just so mad.
He's a jerk, but he's like so charming about it
Yeah.
somehow.
I did not find Jack charming.
Really?
I thought he was just a child
Well,
who
I've
was
seen
like,
that- I've
this
seen
is
that
what I
actor in
want.
several movies, and I think he's very charming. So
Yeah.
I may be bringing in things from other.
I don't know him in any other
Yeah.
films, so this is my exposure
Well,
to
also
him.
like David to me is just so like blank most of the time that I don't really care about him until like near the end when he's starting to.
I have the problem where I really like Crispin
Glover.
Oh yeah,
Glover, and he looked like Crispin Glover, so
Yeah, I
I'm
can
like,
see
I
that
like
hair.
David.
I can see that. Yeah.
I love like the scene with Jack where he goes to like ask for I forget her name's photo,
Sylvia.
And then she's like, she had it for somebody else. And he's like, oh, thanks, bye.
Yeah, it doesn't even look, and it says on the back, like, to David, and he
Yeah.
never looks at the back of the photo.
But
yeah,
like,
that's another. Like, I just did not like Jack. I'm like, dude, you just grab things and say they're yours.
but again, like, I don't know why I'm so surprised, but like that led to such a great moment of like when the photo comes out of the locket and David's just like, yeah, this will destroy you. And just
Yeah,
rips
that
the
was when I
photo up.
started liking David, like that
Like,
scene.
That's such a great like friendship moment of like, yeah, you hate me right now, but this means you don't die while flying today.
And let's talk about that friendship, because I think for me the biggest surprise is just how they treated male friendship in this movie.
The level of affection that men were apparently able to show is like, it makes you sad that they're not allowed to show that today.
There's actually a lot of writing and stuff that's been done on their relationship as homoerotic, and I don't really see that. I just think that
doesn't really come across at all.
no, I don't
That's
think so
the
at all.
problem.
Especially because,
Back
like, at
then-
the end when when he's dying and he kisses him, people are like, "Oh, that's the first gay kiss on screen." I'm like, people just kiss. Like,
Do they
David
have to
kissed
be
his
gay?
mom on the lips in the first scene, like when
Yeah.
he's leaving her. I'm
Yeah.
like, people just kissed more than.
And you're right. The fact that we don't give men permission to be straight and buddies anymore, like no homo, you know,
and
it's like-
affectionate. And
and show
openly
affection.
affectionate,
Like
yeah.
it's all like such homophobia
Yeah.
that anytime two men show affection, it's automatically like, well, I don't know, it's stupid, it's gay.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's definitely like a Western problem because there are like Eastern cultures where it's very common for men to like, oh, we're friends, we're just holding hands today, like just walk down the street, and it's not seen as something weird. But you go into like America, like these sort of like cultures nowadays, and yeah, like this movie would definitely be seen as like the first gay kiss, and it's like it's clearly not. Like you
Or
pay
even
attention
with
to
the
any
French. They kiss each other on the cheek all the time.
There was that
Yeah.
decoration scene where he's just kissing them after he gives them the medals. And it's like, as a person of modern cinema watching stuff nowadays, it's like, that's weird. But then you look back like, that's just a different way, and an interesting way to. I don't know. I really appreciated that.
That was the
look.
only scene for me. Like the whole of their friendship never bothered me. The dude giving them the awards, I was just like, okay, he's getting real personal.
He was
Like that wasn't like in a gay thing. That was just like he's
kissing
getting
them
like
underneath their chin bone, like on
he
their
was getting
neck.
But he's
in their neck.
French.
You know what? That was a nice beard.
You kiss people on the cheek. If someone leaned in and kissed me underneath my chin bone on my
Yes,
neck,
that
I'd
is-
be like,
that was-
Yeah.
"What are you
I wonder if
doing?"
that was like a screen direction to make sure we could see their faces. Something
Yeah,
weird.
because that like, and he got in there and he held for a second. Like that was a romantic gift.
But I did like the different reactions that the pilots had to that, because like was it David who was getting the medal there? He was like kind of stoic, whereas the guy at the end was like, "Cool, I'm getting a medal."
Well, I think David was just always a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
And in my eyes, mature. And Jack was very, like, wide-eyed American, going to war. War is fun!
Yeah.
Until, his best friend dies, and then he just need bloodlust,
Oh,
kill
and
the
then
Germans.
he kills everyone.
Yeah.
But it was
like-
his
Lord.
But he helped them, like, get across the. He helped them. They
He
wouldn't
did.
have
He
won the
did.
battle otherwise.
Actually, even during that one sequence, I just felt bad. When it's a sequence of all of the Germans trying to run away, with Jack just mowing them down, I'm like, they're running away! They're not shooting at you! You're just murdering people
They'll never
right now.
shoot at me again.
Well, and one interesting thing is just because this is World War I, it's just a different war, and it's been
It's pre-Geneva, pre-war crimes.
It's been
Yeah.
interesting. Like those are fascinating because they're so different. Jandy, you and I were talking about that last night too. It's just like those are more interesting to watch than like our World War II fascination. Granted, it's easier to kind of build a narrative around World War II, but there's just like there's scenes in this movie where there's guys using old formation, walking into the turrets, walking into the machine guns because that's the way war was. Just walk toward the thing and shoot at it. Like very much an old style of war in a changing theater, which I thought was really cool, and we just don't have enough of those in war movies.
And it's really interesting that this came out before World War II because you see that more so because the guys doing this thing like that's what they know, so they're the ones who
Yeah.
are directing this war. So
Well, that started falling apart during the Civil. Well, actually, Revolutionary War.
Revolutionary War, yeah.
Revolutionary War.
Because that's when they
the
started.
formations
America.
were becoming
Yeah.
less and less.
Yeah.
But then it really did take off during World War One, during trench warfare, where it just
Yeah.
was not necessary.
Well, the introduction of the machine gun was the major.
the big.
But it's
like
still.
when it took you 5 minutes to reload your gun. That's
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was thinking
a little
about
easier to
guerrilla
walk-
warfare when
yeah.
Americans would hide in trees
yeah.
Also
during the
that,
Revolution.
But that's why it's interesting that
You're like,
this movie.
is stupid. Let's do something else.
That's what what I'm saying is I think that's why it's interesting that these guys are still just walking into machines.
It is centuries of warfare. It'd take a long time to get
Yeah.
out of the military bloodlines, I guess.
Just
Yeah.
banking on numbers. That's what's so scary. Is it's like, well, a lot of us are gonna die. I hope it's not me.
Yeah.
Well, I guess war's like that anyway, but especially when you're lining up. And,
I personally
Yeah.
would have hated to be a drummer boy the most.
Oh god.
That's how the youngest person in the Revolutionary
like-
War died.
Oh man. Like that scene in Glory when they're all just they know they're gonna die. They're just marching forward in formation, and that one dude has the flag, and it's like, oh well, guess here we go.
well, that's like Leningrad too is the worst one where like they only had enough rifles for every other guy.
Ugh.
So you basically were like, if you didn't have a rifle, you're running behind the guy that has the rifle and hoping that when he gets shot, you can get his
Oh
rifle.
my god. That's terrible.
Gotta love those.
I just
when
want to
he
be
gets
Wonder
shot.
Woman, where you can just stand up and use your bracelets and charge.
Boom.
We haven't talked about Mary really at all, and I feel like she warrants a bit of
Yeah, she
conversation.
does. She's
She
pretty
is
cool.
the manic pixie dream girl. Before that was a thing.
Yeah, but
Well, she invented the thing. That's Clara Bow, who was the
Yeah. She
was-
invented it.
Yeah, she was the original it girl, like
Yeah.
the one who
Her hair.
had it in the Eleanor Glenn sense of like some kind of sex appeal that you can't really define. But that's what sex appeal was in the 20s. It's like this pert like girl next door kind of thing.
I mean, she was cute. I loved her hair. I loved her
hair was so
mannerisms.
great.
Yeah,
I wish she cried a
she-
little bit less.
She
cried a lot.
like
Cried a
that
lot.
Yeah.
bob, like she invented. She was the
Oh,
first one that
right.
had that.
but she was.
So she was the Rachel of her day.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, you're the Clara Bow.
Yeah, no, she was super super popular.
Well, no, and she's instantly engaging.
Her
Like,
eyes
more
are
so-
beautiful.
The two guys take me a second to warm up to. Like the second she's on screen, she's engaging.
Which is also like, what's wrong with Jack?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because
You're
the
not
other girl
gonna
had
get
the
better.
Yeah.
the other girl had the advantage. She was from the city.
Well, it's interesting.
Whatever that meant.
It's interesting. One of the techniques they'll use from here, like along cinema, is just like they'll soften the lens and kind of try to make a glow to the actresses. But they didn't have to do that for her in this. And the scenes where they do kind of do that, it's like, oh, you're just, we don't need that. Get that.
They do
get that
light
They did the
her more.
halo
Yeah.
a
They
lot.
do light her more though.
and
They
the,
light
and
her
the
more, and
halo where it's just out of focus in a circle around her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely do that. What he was talking about in the bar in Paris, like when she's wearing the dress and like that, they really show her as much as they can.
That has the male gaze down.
Yes.
God. The part. Can we talk about when she gets him to the hotel room and then realizes that he's just too out of it to actually do anything, and she's putting her uniform back on? One, you see side boob, which really surprised me.
I think
and
you
then
see all of it.
Oh, you see boobs.
the
see
whole
all
thing.
of it.
Oh, I missed that.
I'm sure the
I
men
must
of
have
the
been
20s
looking
were
away.
like, we're seeing this every day.
But those
Oscar-worthy.
men, and they have the really tall man who's just standing
He's just
staring at her like
yeah.
he's an ogre. I'm just like, what the hell?
I believe when that happened, I went, "Oh, girl."
I'm just like, this is illustrating the male gaze to a really uncomfortable level.
Yeah. But did you see something else that surprised me? Did you see in the bar scene when he was right before the bubbles? First of all, that shot when they were pulling into the bar
Through
and
the
people
table.
were
That's
like moving.
incredible.
I've
Oh.
seen that as a meme for the longest time. I did not know it was in
it
this
was
movie.
so good. And then when they get one of the couples that they split apart, was it two women dressed as men? Is that what I was looking
It
at?
looked
That
like
looked
it.
really.
I didn't
could
know
have
that.
been.
It was very possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting too.
Well, the one problem that this movie has is it's a period film before they really got stickler about that. So it is a World War I movie, but styled in 27.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So flappers definitely played with gender roles before anyone really gave them credit for that, I guess. So there's a lot of flappers that would dress up as men because they wanted to be dandies. And it's a beautiful subculture. If you ever look up the photos, it's fantastic. But yeah, this movie's kind of weird in the way. We're like, it's supposed to be like 1915, but they all look like they're in 27.
And this is still
it really doesn't bother me, but that's because it's now 2017, and
Yeah.
it's like, close enough. It's like
10
10
years
apart.
off is
Yeah.
fine.
But like stylistically wise, it was huge when it came to fashion and
Yeah.
social change. The
And this-
differences between the eras.
And this
Sure.
is still pre-code, correct?
This is
Yeah.
pre-code.
Still
Well,
The
it's
codes-
before the code. It's not technically pre-code if you want to get technical.
okay.
Well, explain that.
Yeah.
Okay, pre-code as a era is 1930 to 1934 because the production code was introduced in 1930. Like that's when it was written, and everyone said we're going to agree to this.
I just does everybody listening to this podcast know what that means?
I'm sure they don't.
Shall
Yeah,
I
I
explain
guess explain the
pre-code?
code.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So
Take us to school.
It's very fascinating.
in the classic era, there's a thing called the production code, which all the studios kind of agreed to. Like they wrote it and they agreed to it to kind of keep the content in their films clean because they were getting a lot of pressure from Catholic groups and from government groups saying your movies are too dirty, like we can't have these out there. Sex, violence, and like crime, like crime being seen as okay or like
Divorce was a part of
glorified.
that too, wasn't it?
Divorce too, yeah, all
and-
those kind of things. So they were getting so much pressure that in 1930 they all got together and like made this production code, wrote it, and proceeded not to follow any of it at all. Like
we
just-
made it.
yeah, just like violated everything completely. But the idea was that they would self-govern so that they didn't get outside censorship. But they didn't do that, and by 1934 it had gotten like so bad that they were getting a lot more pressure, and they finally decided, okay, we gotta abide by this. So between 1930 and 1934 is called pre-code because the code, they've written the code so you know what's in it, but it's not being enforced.
Okay.
So anything before 1930 is kind of technically before the code in that they didn't have a standard of decency, I guess. But if you talk to classic film historians and call something before 1930 pre-code, they'll stop you on it.
Okay.
Because it's technically after the code was written, but before it was enforced.
Because I just remember when Brian had me watching Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
And how it was a big deal when I forgot his name. The one that ends up marrying the dude gets in the bed with Marilyn Monroe, and like there's a man and a woman in a bed together, and how that was like a big deal at the time because technically the code was still in effect.
The production code was in effect until 1968 when it was replaced with the MPAA rating system. But
he
it
was
started kind of breaking down in the 50s, and more producers and directors started trying to push it. And Billy Wilder, who did Some Like It Hot, was one who pushed it almost every film. He tried to do something that would like break it up. So yeah, there are a lot of things. But I mean, one of the earliest ones was like Gone with the Wind saying damn in 1939. Like that wasn't allowed. And they were like, we need this for this scene to work.
Oh yeah, it's
And-
such a classic
Yeah,
line.
it's
Yeah,
iconic.
and they put it in, but that would have been against the code at the time.
Huh. Interesting.
And now a ding sound.
Yeah.
This is what we learned.
No, that stuff gets really fascinating. And then when you go back and watch these ones that break the rules, you're just like, whoa, look what they thought breaking the rules were. Like it's,
Yeah,
it's so
they-
cool.
But this one
look-
took place
they're tame.
before the rules were in place,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But,
Okay.
but even those are interesting too because you can kind of tell where people would have objections to it. 'Cause
This was actually fairly tame compared to what you'll see in the pre-code, like 1932, 33. Era.
I've heard of the things that they did during that period, and yeah, I was just like, we had all that stuff in movies back then.
Oh yes.
Oh my god, that's like almost more
it's-
progressive
it's
than now.
Tame, it's tame compared to now in terms of that, but some of it is progressive.
There was
But
a lot of progressive things.
what
pre-code.
happens a lot is you get like a woman who will do like all kinds of crazy things, like be really super liberated, and then to like appease the censors at the end, they'll have her just like the last scene will be like she gets her comeuppance, and you're like, this is so awesome.
Oh my god.
They broke it.
Just sorry, brief sidebar, but do not get me started on stormy weather. Like that makes me physically angry for that very reason.
I don't know that movie.
That's basically she decides to like doesn't need a man and set out on her own, and the lesson that she learns is that was a terrible idea.
Yeah, she
Never
really
walk
is a
away
man.
from a man ever again.
Ugh.
Fun time.
Great song though.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a bit
it's great
like,
music of that movie.
Yeah.
But
to
yeah.
jump off the female thing, the woman. I forgot her name. The it girl. What's her name again?
Mary.
Clara Bow.
Oh, Clara Bow.
Claire Bow.
Bow?
Bow.
Bow.
I was upset when her character had to go back home because
For
I
that?
liked that
Yeah.
she responded to a call for drivers. She goes to war and she's just super cute driving her car around,
Yeah.
running other guys over, but then they love her because she's so cute, even though she hit her with their car. I loved that sequence. And it was just fun to see her kind of be empowered outside of Jack.
Yeah, and it's totally unfair that they made her go
That
home
she,
just for that.
yeah, she has to get
Like,
fired.
well, maybe
and
if
sent
you
home.
weren't bursting into hotel rooms, then
Yeah.
Oh, the door's unlocked. Let me just go in.
And she was putting her clothes on, and he was clearly
Clearly out of
dressed.
it, yeah.
Nothing happened.
I want to jump back really quick to something we mentioned very briefly. That shot going into the club. My film history teacher spent an entire day talking about that one shot. That's the only thing I knew about this movie. But that one shot is it's incredible. You can find it online if you just look up Wings dolly shot.
But I've shared that
Yeah.
meme more than once.
But it's interesting, the way
GIF or whatever.
so much planning went into that one shot. It's insane.
I get astounded by that specifically because the only other movie that comes into my mind that did something like that was in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, when the camera is, I don't remember, coming out of the Sultan's house.
Yeah.
But during that sequence in that movie, you can clearly see the actor stepping out
Yeah.
or stepping in. And in this one, you can't tell.
Yeah, you don't see
you
it.
don't
You
see
lean
them.
back a
You
little
can
bit,
kind of
but
see them move back, but
Yeah.
like the furniture and really
yeah.
their bodies you don't get the impression that they actually left.
But also, you don't have monitor. You don't have
Yeah.
replay. You just have to, enough people have their eyes on it to know that it was right.
And lighting. Every
my
moment in
God.
that space, every area in that space has to be lit the same way.
It's incredible.
That's why I get
the-
so mad when things are out of focus in movies nowadays, because I'm like, come on, ACs.
Yeah.
Come on. People used to have it so much harder than you.
The only other shot that it harkens back to for me is in Citizen Kane when it goes through the O in the sign, because that's the only time that I remember. It's like, all right, well, I want to go through the O. Well, you can't do that. All right, so we'll split the sign in half. We get through the O, you rip the sign in half, and it looks like you go through the O.
Wow.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
it's like, that's the sort of stuff like an old film that I geek out about. Like these really cool shots. I'm like, that's impossible with the technology that they had. And no, it's possible.
They even do
We
that.
just put more elbow grease into it than you
I just-
lazy bastards.
Last night when I was on set, my computer had a meltdown, and for 5 minutes I couldn't type things, and I was just like, "What do I do?" You know,
Film is impossible.
Get a notebook
Shut
and
it
a
down.
pencil.
Shut it down. But there was also that scene with David and Sylvia in the swing in the beginning where that camera's doing the same type of thing.
If that had been 3D, I might have gotten sick.
yeah.
I think there is either that thing was bolted to a swing or there was a screen behind him.
Well,
'Cause
but
when
he
Chewie-
drives the. Well, I guess you could put that on.
Yeah,
screen,
when
too.
Chewie and I watched it again, and it looks like there is a chance that's a screen.
Yeah, when he jumps out of the car, you could do a quick cut for him running at them and then appearing behind them in front of a screen.
I'd have to watch it 10 more times, but I think that was a screen trick.
But it's so cool that I was talking to Jenny about this last night. With the advent of sound, those types of shots just stopped existing for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so just to see what they were able to do kind of now that they've figured out film.
Well, this is why, a lot of, at the time when sound came in, everyone heralded it as the death of cinema. Because
you can't do this
you
stuff
can't
anymore.
do this stuff. And it really is, I didn't get that until I watched Wings and Sunrise and a few others of
Yeah.
really late silence, 1927, 28. But they had a height of artistry and effects and things that they were able to do that just died for about 10 years.
Well, because it requires yelling at each other and moving very loud things out
Yeah.
of the way. And
Until they invented good boomsticks and lavs and stuff.
Right.
where
Well,
they're-
they also when they had the sound cameras, they were much larger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you couldn't move anything around them because the microphones would pick it up.
Yeah,
So-
I remember reading so much stuff about them hiding microphones in flowers, so that's why so
You
many
just
women
watch
just look
Singing
like
in the
they're
Rain.
yeah,
talking
it's
to
one of my
vases.
favorite scenes in Singing in the Rain.
You think they're exaggerating that, but it's like a documentary. Singing in the Rain
Yeah.
is basically a documentary.
But yeah,
Oh.
it's just so cool to see that artistry and this just to see how it has kind of still permeated. And I just wish we had that sense. We could go back to some of that.
Well,
Spend
it's
more time
interesting.
on the
There's
artistry of it.
There's certain types of shots, like the overlays that they do when they first go to the battlefield and all the troops are walking away in a long shot, and they juxtapose scenes of the battle up on the top of the screen. That wouldn't be hard to do now, but no one really does it.
It's just they do it they'll do some of that stuff in animation.
Yeah, I
I
see
think
it more in animation.
They did that in Pocahontas actually.
I guess
when they
because
went
it's
to war.
it's not realistic. It's kind of a.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the last movie that I saw that did that.
But it was so cool to see that it had such
I
a
like that type of
had such an epic feel.
overlay.
Yeah, no, this movie is epic, like Brian said earlier.
Oh yeah, it's epic as hell.
And it's those techniques that are really doing that. And I just
They should put that on the new Blu-ray. Epic as hell.
epic as hell. From after the hype, epic as hell.
Epic as hell. After the hype.
But
That's the best sound blurb they can get, or like it's one of the most famous movies of all time. But yeah, some podcast.
podcast
Right.
is epic
They
as
seem to
hell.
like it.
This movie might have a chance.
The name of this episode, Epic as Hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just it's cool to see those effects and just taking that for granted. I definitely have taken that for granted going to film school and getting so wrapped up in like Kubrick that like, man, there's a lot of this stuff that inspired him, you know, and all
Yeah,
these
oh,
things
yeah.
communicate that level of artistry and kind of technical artistry that as a digital editor, like I feel like we're kind of we're at war with that.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of the stuff on Wikipedia as you guys are talking. And I'm finding what I think are interesting things. Like there's a one sheet for the poster that's just a picture of Clara Bow.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
And it's
Yeah,
just
well, she
her
was the draw.
wings.
She
Yeah.
was the star.
And she's in it. I mean, it's a long movie. It's 2.5 hours. I'd say she's in it for like 45 minutes, maybe, probably even less. But yeah, she's still the face in the movie.
And it's always cool to kind of see these movies where there was a star who was the star kind of doing what they do.
Yeah.
And like we've mainly gotten rid of that. We don't like that sort of thing much anymore and kind of really push against it.
Yeah, we've talked about it before on here. There's a couple still like
Tom Cruise still is
Yeah,
Tom Cruise
Tom's-
doing Tom Cruise things.
because Tom Cruise, it's still a guaranteed return. Like
Yeah.
it's very rare his movies don't.
But-
Even if they don't make money here, they'll still make
There's
money overseas.
almost nobody. I mean, for a while, Will Smith was that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now there's
yeah.
nobody can open a movie anymore.
And
It's
there's
really
no
only
Even Tom Cruise. I mean, The Mummy failed.
not overseas.
Oh, really? Oh.
Huge overseas.
Chris Pratt is still pretty popular for himself, I think.
But, like, we don't
not after
have-
Passengers, which
Passengers.
I'll
After you
talk
describe
about.
Passengers,
I'll talk
to me,
about it next week.
Fuck.
Oh boy.
But man, like we don't have a Clara Bow
No,
or
we don't.
or a woman who can
Jennifer
who's the it
Lawrence.
Yeah, well, Angelina for a little bit, but not
Oh,
really
yeah.
anymore. I
We
don't
we
think.
kind of been up and down on that, and I would say largely like there'd be a subsection of people who don't really pay attention to her, like Jennifer Lawrence. She wouldn't bring that like a certain set of people, whereas Clara Bow back in the time would just bring everybody.
Oh yeah,
Everybody.
Everybody.
I don't think there is a female star today who has that. Like she's in a movie, everyone's seeing it. It was
That's
all
partly probably because the roles that we give women now
are
are
terrible.
so-
Yeah,
It's not just
But
the
it's- but
role;
it's
it's,
weird.
really the accessibility.
Yeah.
If you wanted to see an amazing, beautiful woman, you have to go to movies back
That's a
then.
good point.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have, you might have some magazines, but you definitely don't have television or the internet much
Now you
yet.
can go on Pornhub.
Now you
Yeah.
can go see beautiful women whenever you want.
Well, what's interesting is just like back then, everyone like the stars were supposed to be these accessible commodities, but like the studios built their personalities and kind of
Yeah.
constructed them.
Well, they were encouraged to keep a certain persona instead
Yeah.
of like chameleon into different roles. They were just
this is gonna sound possibly wrong, but I think it's more likened today to reality stars. Like these people are paid to be that person. Like that is your entire job to be that person. Granted, back then it's because they're movie stars and you get to see them be that person in these roles. Whereas today it's like we pay millions of dollars to idiots to be idiots. But as long as they keep being that idiot, we'll keep paying them millions of dollars.
Right, and it was to an extent where if you've seen the movie Hail Caesar, they kind of play on that. The Josh Brolin character is actually a real person who would actually go and kind of keep tabs on people, make sure they behave, cover up their mistakes, and discipline them if they kind of broke their contract and how to behave.
Yeah.
And that was really fascinating, and you must remember this has a really great thing about that. But that's kind of how these stars can they bring in everybody. Everybody wants to know what Clara Bow is up to.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point because you also have Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram.
Yeah.
I mean, you can keep up to date with their lives and feel like you know them as people without necessarily going to see them in the movie.
Yeah, it's
well, and then like you would know their off-screen lives because
Yeah.
of the magazines which the studios publish.
Yeah, and now
So
it's
these
all
people-
just
Yeah,
fake and-
everything is
It was-
published.
Fake news,
It's these people. It's
sad.
their publicists saying it sometimes, but sometimes it's genuine that you really see their that's when they say stupid stuff, and then they come back and you're like, oh, and they apologize, and you're like, wow, you actually said a dumb thing because you don't have someone running all your
Yeah.
like you don't have a studio running your persona.
Yeah. I remember, I don't remember what tabloid it was or which actress it was, but I remember reading about the first time people got the sensationalized things about actors. This one actress was caught in the act, like cheating on her boyfriend or husband, and she had a bow and arrow, and she shot an arrow at a photographer, and they had a photo of her doing it. Like, I don't remember what this was, but I remember reading about how this is the first time people got the scandalous stuff about stars' lives, and then tabloids were a thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's
She
where
sounds like a
they
badass.
like
that's
Like,
where it
it
like
does.
broke. That's like where it broke, where they could no longer control their image completely.
But now that I think about it, it's like it's weird because for all that star power and that her big draw, she's essentially doing nothing more or less than what any female co-star would do now.
Well, yeah, but the thing that I find the most interesting about her being the big draw of this movie is how little she's in it. Because she's a major part in the beginning, and then she shows up for the war, and you think she's gonna be a major part of the war, and they don't even know she's there. Like they find out that she's
out too.
yeah, they find out that she was there because she gets kicked out, and they read it in the newspaper. Like, oh, she was here? Huh. It's weird that she quit though. That doesn't sound like her. No, she's probably fired. Oh, okay, back to war. And it's just like,
Mary's not like that.
yeah, it's just such a quick little like, that doesn't sound like her. Moving on.
Yeah.
No, it's the whole thing about the time it was made, and women aren't actually supposed to be that active.
No, I get that, but it's still just like, if she was the star of your film, it's still a very minor role compared to the other two guys.
Was it considered a large role back then, or would she
I mean,
have had
she's the
larger
face
role?
on the poster. Like,
Yeah,
you
but I
look-
mean, like, for in general, like, would this amount of screen time been considered a large role for a woman?
Not necessarily. I mean, they made plenty of major, films made, that were led by women. But you wouldn't really have expected a woman to have a major role in a war film, probably,
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
at that time.
I think it's time to move into quotes, which is difficult in a silent film.
I remember mine. I don't know if it's
I've got mine
verbatim.
written
Let me see if I
down.
can pull up the
So
verbatim.
I did throw out a qualifier to everyone that if you did not feel like writing down one of the things they said, I will take any title card as a quote because there are no actual words in this. So if there's one thing that particularly spoke to you, all of those fly.
Can we talk about the sound, though, in the film a little bit?
Oh, sure, why not?
Since it kind
Yeah.
of feeds into this thing of quotes.
Yeah,
I assume the print that you guys saw had some synchronized sound in it.
it did.
Okay. What did you guys think about that?
It felt really out of place.
Did it?
Yeah.
Is that what Lucasfilm did? Because I noticed they were in the credits.
Well, Ben Burt, who did Star Wars and stuff, he
Yeah.
was the sound consultant for the restoration. But it's. I just wondered if it struck you guys as out of place or if it felt anachronistic.
I had
depends.
to.
Because it actually
Depended-
isn't. But I was
It depended on when it happened.
Was it in the original?
Well, it's complicated. They did have sound at the time.
Yeah.
Because 1927, they had been doing sound in shorts for a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
So there are a lot of films from 27, 28 that have some amount of synchronized sound effects. None of the prints that we have surviving from that time have synchronized sound.
Well, this
But-
one is also not the original print. Like the original print of this is gone. Just
Well, but I mean, they may not have a master, but they have prints from the time that they took this from, or
oh, yeah, I was reading about it on
Or-
here. Like this was considered a lost film.
right. But then they found a print, or it would still be lost.
It's it's not the original master. It's
No, that's
That's
probably
what she
true.
was saying.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
yeah.
But the theory is that there were probably sync prints that went out later in the run, but those don't exist anymore. But the score is original, and they sent the score out on sheet music for piano players and orchestras to play at each theater. And there were notes in the sheet music for where to slow down the music or stop the music for sound effects to be played,
Oh, interesting.
either live or recorded at the theater. So it's actually probably pretty much what people would have heard, but they might have heard the sound effects live in the theater instead of on the
That's
print.
what I was thinking when I was watching it, because I mean, I know that a lot of theaters had organs in the front and just pits for people to have different instruments or whatnot. So I knew there was some activity.
The first time I saw it, I was really thrown off by the sound, some of the sound, and also the like the painting on when they were firing the.
I was actually really
yellow and
impressed
red.
by that. I'm like, ooh, look!
I
they're
thought
trying to
that
make
was like a
real
later
fire.
edition from later, but it's not. That's
Yeah.
hand painted from the time.
That poor editor, or whoever they had drawing that.
See, I liked all that, but it was really. I think maybe it's just that this is clearly, maybe not clearly, but this feels like the restoration sound. Like it felt out of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious how it would strike you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen silent
bother
films
me.
with
It
sound
didn't bother
effects,
me
but
Yeah.
it
Some of
did
them
stick
seem
out.
weird.
Yeah.
The ones where there's like a scene that's silent and then a scene that's got synchronized talking. They did
Yeah.
that a lot in 1929 when they were switching over. That's really weird to me. I like it, but it's weird.
Well, and it's interesting because some of the movies too will, like for the comedies, they'll use the music as the sound effects, like a little symbol like whoop or a
Yeah.
like a cymbal
Like
crash.
the Looney Tunesing.
Yeah, Chaplin stuff where it's like the music will kind of do like a zoop, like an uptick for something funny. Whereas this, yeah, it's like it does feel very weird, but it feels like we're coming upon a change.
See, for me, it was I want to say it's like half the sound effects that bothered me. Like, because like all the plane stuff, didn't even notice it. Like that just felt organic. But like when the car started in the beginning, that one just felt really weird and out of place. It's funny, like it was not all of them, but some of them felt weird.
It's kind of the weird thing I get when like I do a first pass of editing something and I don't have any sound effects in there at all. It's just the music. But then I put one sound effect in there, so I'm showing it off as like here's the cut so far, and it's like nothing, music. It's like boink, and it's like that's okay. That's
weird.
kind of odd. That's
Boink.
kind of odd. So like there's that kind of sense of like, is this intended? And that's
Yeah.
the first thing I even asked you was like, is it supposed to be that way?
Yeah. But silent films were never really silent, though.
Well, yeah.
But they were non-talking films, so that's what.
They were not talkies.
Yes.
The thing that in my brain, the whole time I watch it, I haven't watched very many silent films. And whenever I do, I'm just constantly going, there's so much more happening on their faces. They're saying so many words, and all I get is a one-sentence title card. What were they saying? Are they... in
lot
my
of
brain,
times
I'm
you're-
like, there's either like way more depth to this, or you're all just swearing at each other
a
the
lot
whole
of times
time.
they're not even saying what the dialogue is supposed
Yeah.
to be.
I'd love to see a screenplay.
Yeah.
And see
I
what
would
the
love
difference-
to go back in time to just watch them and be like, so what are they actually saying to each other? Are they yelling at each other about laundry? Like, is it mundane, or are they just coming up with absurd things?
Well, and so then there's also in Hail Caesar that joke with the American actor trying to do the prestige kind of ballroom thing.
Would that it were.
Would
Well,
that
that
it
it
were.
were.
Would that it were. Like those,
I'm going to be Han Solo.
but like those things, they would spend all that time on that, and it would just be a really simple title card.
Yeah. Well, then there were a couple times they'd put up a title card that was like, okay. And I was like, I think I could have understood that he meant okay without you putting that title card
Or it's
up.
okay, and he just went through an entire paragraph on his face. Like,
I'm not typing that. These things take forever. All right, I'm going to say quotes.
I'm just going to say mine really fast because I definitely can't find it on the internet, but it threw me for a loop the moment I read it. It's when Clara comes in for the first time and he's like, and there's his neighbor Mary, who he picked up at a fire and then later regretted it. Like, that's not an exact quote, but that's pretty much what it said. I went, what? So wait, he picked her up at, like, he literally said he picked her up. Like, was that, like, they had a one-night stand? Or he just was nice to her? Or what does that mean?
Did he rescue her?
I
And
thought it
regret
meant he
that?
rescued her from a fire.
That's what I
Oh.
assumed too, yeah.
In my brain, they met at a social event, like at a fire, like a
Did
fire,
they use
like
picking
Oh, you
someone
mean
up in that way?
you mean like a bonfire?
a bonfire. I thought it said like bonfire or something. And
like
then,
a high school bonfire?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Homecoming?
In my brain, and then he's just like regretted it because now she's never left him alone.
Right.
I mean, no matter how you play that
basically
regret,
fucking
that's
old
still
Roger.
weird. Yeah. She won't leave.
Oh, she's so attractive, but why won't she leave?
So mine was it's during the drinking scene, and he was just told he needs to go back to war because all of their leaves were canceled. He needs to go back, and she's like, "You need to go back to war," and he just looks and goes, "No war, just bubbles."
And then starts like assaulting the bed.
Well, no, he was still in the bar.
This is
then.
even
That's in the
before-
bar, yeah.
Oh, I just remember.
I picked When Your Time Comes, You're Gonna Get It. Said by a man who promptly got into a plane and crashed and died.
He should have had a good luck thing. He would have been fine.
Oh, was that the guy who didn't have his good luck thing?
Yeah, that was
The-
Mr. White.
Mr. White. Yeah.
Yeah. We liked Mr. White. We were like, he seemed like an important character
I-
for a
Oh,
moment.
he was Gary Cooper.
That was
And that was Gary
Cooper?
Cooper.
Oh.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, it's
Very
not
handsome.
his first
Till he
role,
died.
but it was very, very early in his
Oh.
career. So
I had such a great I had to pause the movie after that. Like, here's this character, Mr. White, and he has his whole speech, and then
and then
he
he
promptly
dies.
dies. It's like, man, that's a bold move.
But that's like, as soon as I heard him saw him say that, when he was just like, you know, when your time comes, you're gonna get it. Now I'm gonna get in my plane and fly around.
I
And
thought
was
he
like,
was going to
oh,
last a
he's
little
gonna
bit
get it,
longer.
dude.
Like, did he even get out of the vicinity of the
No.
base?
No.
Nope.
He was doing some like trainee loop-loops and just looped into the ground.
Oh my
And
god.
there was another plane and went, that was a cool crash, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost kind of wish it was even more lackluster. Like he just drove a foot and then the plane just exploded.
Bet you wish you had a teddy now.
Where's your good luck charm now, punk?
Right.
Next.
Okay, mine was I may be cheating the system, but mine is the title card, but I liked it less for the actual words on it and more for the design of the title card. But it was right when they're leaving the basic training basically and going to the actual war. And it's like a mighty maelstrom of destruction, the war now drew into its center the power and pride of all the earth. And there's an actual whirlwind behind
yeah,
the
yeah,
title,
yeah,
and
that's
then
pretty
they
cool.
actually burn the film or something so that the words on the title twist.
That's pretty cool.
I remember that. It was
Yeah,
pretty good.
I'm very into title design, and that was very, very an interesting and innovative one.
Satisfying.
Yes.
Who hasn't gone?
Mine's just because of when I first read it, I had to do a double take. They called the German planes, the smaller ones, Fokkers. And so the title card is, pursuing one Fokker, David lays himself open to attack by the other. And I had to stop
We
for a second
definitely
and
made a
go-
lot of jokes about that.
Oh yeah, I have made many a Fokker joke. You're gonna die now, Fokker.
But that's the thing, is like they're also
It's the name of the plane. It's the plane.
they're also saying that in the plane after every shot. So I was like, yeah, Fokker. And I'm like, this is an old movie. It's supposed to be clean.
Fuck you, Fokker.
But then if I wanted to do a more serious one, I liked when they're going to the Paris nightclub, and the title card behind it has like a weird miniature like marionette of a woman
Yeah,
gyrating.
that was cool.
With like a little hand spinning something. Like there was like this stuff going on behind it that I thought was really cool. I like that more for the visual of that, but I thought this title card I picked was funny.
The visuals of them going to Paris or whatnot, and all the suggestivity of that was pretty amusing. There's hookahs.
There's hookahs and bubbles afoot.
It's Paris.
French ladies.
Was that everybody? Right?
That's
Yeah.
everybody.
All right. So the review system for this is going to be the same as every one of these episodes. Just so you know, every time we do one of these, it's the same review system. So you can potentially prepare a little bit
Okay.
if you feel like it. Other Academy Award winners.
Oh, jeez.
Any other film?
I'm not
that-
prepared. I feel unprepared.
I know.
I don't remember
Wait,
movies.
Best Picture?
Best
or-
Picture.
Okay.
Any film that has
Damn
won
it.
Best Picture.
I'm going to go for one, and I'm going to try it. We'll see if it works. Gladiator.
Okay.
And the reason for that is just, on surface level, kind of the epic feel, the epic scope of it. The way it kind of goes from just simple battles in the beginning to the grand Colosseum and the huge fight, and just kind of encompasses the epicness of life. It's epic as hell, and the music is also really good. I love Gladiator's score, and I felt a sense of excitement with that. As I did with this movie, the score was really exciting to listen to, and it was just interesting, kind of covering one aspect of a really big time.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's my attempt at that.
I'm going with Deer Hunter. Deer Hunter mostly because it's also a war film, but it's also the entire story is told so well because of its pacing, much like this movie. And if you're not into film, Deer Hunter is the slowest, most boring movie ever. Much like this would be if you're not really into film. This would just be a long slog of every now and then flying in a dated way. But if you're into film, it's great, just like Deer Hunter. If you like film and the way movies are made, Deer Hunter is incredible.
I'm going to go with Romeo and Juliet because, guys, this movie is also depressing. And you see boobs.
There we go.
I'm going to go with one that I'm not sure how I'm going to tie this in. Dances with Wolves. It is an epic about a man who's dealing with war in a way that he's not completely familiar with, but he has to learn from people how to survive. And there's a woman who he eventually he wears her down and they fall in love. But in this movie, the man is worn down by the woman, kind of.
There's a wearing
And it was
down.
very influential at the time. I mean, Dances with Wolves, how
The cinematography.
cinematography is fantastic. However much it is very much a white man saving the Indians or whatnot. All you need is a white man movie. If you just ignore that, and just watch it for its epicness and how it does show war in a rather grim way. It's very from a different perspective, which, especially when Wings came out, they probably didn't have very much perspective on war and what it would actually entailed beyond going, it will make you men. It's interesting, and it's beautiful, and it's an epic.
Is there anybody else?
Yeah, I still have to go. I'm trying to decide. Because I think it would be too much of a punt just to say All Quiet on the Western Front, since it's basically the same movie.
I was going to say either All Quiet on the Western Front and The Artist are both cheating.
Okay.
Western Front.
I was going to say the other one I was thinking about was West Side Story, because this movie takes place on the Western Front. So.
Okay.
It works.
Well, I mean, the Germans are the sharks and the Americans are the allies of the Jets?
It's wall-to-wall music.
Dude,
There
if
you
we
go.
had
Yeah.
people
In a
in
way.
planes clicking their thumbs, like that would have been amazing.
Oh,
that's
that's
the
hanging
engine-
out the side of the thing, just staring at him.
I got you, you fuckers.
I'm so into that movie.
Well, the Paris scene would fit right in.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Are you done yet?
Almost.
I hope that.
As Karina has said, we are wrapping this up to a close. Next week we have Free Fire is the name of that movie. I don't know how I'm forgetting the name of that.
Sitting right there.
Yeah, I know. It's just right over there. So we have Free Fire, and then the week after that, we are probably going to be taking off because I failed at scheduling. But that's okay. So thank you for everyone for coming out. Karina, do you want to say hi?
Say hi to the microphone. Talk in the microphone. Say something.
Hi!
Say get out of here, guys.
Get out of here, guys!
Aw.
Do you want to say goodbye?
Say goodbye!
That works.